And I'm now going to call upon Dr. G.V. Rao. He is a senior advocate of the Supreme Court. He is the president of Education, Law and Policy Association of India. And I'm going to call upon him to address us on the fundamental duties of every citizen for good governance. And he's going to cover a few of the questions that were asked. Thank you, Dr. G.V. Rao.
Good evening, everyone, especially my good friend Dr. Merchant, Anup Bose Sensei, and others who are present here, patiently waiting for me to speak, conclude, and perhaps call this an evening. But thank you for that. Let me tell you something very interesting, which came to my mind and which I feel very glad about. That not many years ago, that was my childhood, and it looks like yesterday to me. I used to live in the multi-storied apartment adjoining this club, and my childhood a lot of it was spent around in this club, the swimming pool next door, and I saw a lot of things happening in the lawns outside in Mavalankar Hall. This venue, this hall here, is a historic place, truly historic place, because right from my childhood, I have seen people who have been here on the dais or off the dais, addressing gathering, hearing people, make it really big. There have been presidents and prime ministers and ministers and speakers and what have you. All of them, right from my childhood, I have seen, and there are times without number which I have been present in this hall and I've heard very, very eminent people speak, also attended by many people. In fact, the Baha'i House of Worship, which had the dinner for Chief Justices, there were Chief Justices from 58 countries. They held their conference of Chief Justices here. So the Constitution Club is a historic place, and if you have chosen this, not only to celebrate the 75th Constitution Day, but all future activities related to that, you've done a great thing, and it will take off in a big way. But what's most important is that we are having it recorded, and it is live, and it is going to many, many people. It will reach many, many people across the country and perhaps the world. So my talk, which I decided what I should be speaking on the 75th Constitution Day, is on good governance. Now, good governance is a concept that evolved recently, and it is attributed to Barn Conable, who was a former World Bank president. Now, as we grow, the countries are graded on the basis of various factors. How corrupt they are, how high are on the economic development index, how much is the freedom of press, how is their ranking on freedom of press, poverty alleviation, democratic functioning, etc. And good governance is an index which is being recently evolved as an expression of how well the government is performing, how well are the citizens able to participate in the governance, and how they are able to bring about a change for the better. And if you ask me, given the fact that India is one of the fastest growing economies and has become currently the 5th largest and soon to be the 3rd largest, if there is anything called good governance really in action and in motion, it's in India we find that. And how does that happen? How have we arrived at great, you just heard Dr. Qureshi, our former Chief Election Commissioner, speak about India's positioning in the world. And many other factors have contributed to that. And how did we do that? By the single one document that we celebrate today, the Constitution of India. And let me tell you what is the beauty of the Constitution of India. The framers of the Constitution must have to be congratulated for the kind of things that have been introduced in our Constitution. We are not only a great democratic country, one of the largest functioning democratic country, but we are also an inspiration to many, many, many other countries across the world in Asia and Europe who are trying to emulate the principles that we have emulated in governance and in other aspects, in order that they grow and prosper at the rate at which we are. Economic index is not just one index. It is, we are posting growth rates to 7% and above, and we are the greatest destination for foreign investment. So therefore, if there is a shining example of good governance, as enunciated by a former president of the World Bank, it is in India, and it is because of the constitution, with the institutions that we have created in our country, which help us bring good governance right across the country. Now, recently the United Nations came about the Sustainable Development Goals. There are 17 Sustainable Development Goals, which also will encompass any country which chooses to provide good governance. What are they? No poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being, quality education, gender equality, clean water and sanitation, affordable clean energy, decent work and economic growth, industry, innovation and infrastructure, reduced inequalities, sustainable cities and communities, responsible consumption and production, climate action, life below the water, life on land, peace, justice and strong institutions, and partnership for the goals. Now, what did Indian Constitution do that created this amazing environment and ecosystem of extremely, the resulting in good governance and resulting in extreme, a country right across the country, things happening, things working for the better, and resulting in growth, prosperity, development, and great status in the world. Indians are one of the most respected people right across. I travel around the world, and if you were good old days, 20 years ago, a couple of decades ago, you did not get the kind of respect that you get if you say you're an Indian, you're welcome every place. I heard the Chief Election Commissioner say that we're giving up our country. They're welcoming you. Indian citizens, come settle down, take a passport, help us grow. And that's probably the reason. I don't think it's exclusively that they were running away from something that has made them unhappy. I wouldn't agree with him on that account. Now, democracy is what we gave through our constitution. And as a student of political science, I must tell you, as history would tell you, that the best form of government over the years that helps grow, and it gives growth to individuals, the citizenry, the groups and associations of people. Even secularism is a part of democracy. If democracy itself means secularism, it means freedom of speech, expression, thought, worship, etc. So therefore, democracy is a free country where everybody is given that opportunity to excel to his best, and to excel not only in this country but in other countries as well. And that's what democracy has done to India. How did we achieve democracy? We achieved it through the Constitution of India. What does the Constitution, what did it give in its roadmap? It gave 3 pillars of the government. The Constitution says you shall have a legislature, an executive and a judiciary. It is mentioned right in the Constitution. What does the legislature do? It makes the laws. What does the executive do? It implements the laws. What does the judiciary do? It tries to adjudicate the disputes and give rights and protects the rights of citizens whose rights may have been trampled upon, whose rights may not have been given, and the government of the day or the executive may have ignored it, or the legislature has not given it enough attention. So it just gave you, and according to John Locke, all democracy functions in a system of checks and balances between the legislature and the executive and the judiciary. All 3 of them, if the legislature errs, the executive or the judiciary may come and point out, here you are going wrong, or if the legislature errs or the executive errs, the other 2 organs, the judiciary and the legislature, would come and say, and if the judiciary errs, the executive and the legislature will be there to tell the judiciary, you have gone wrong. There are systems and mechanisms and methods that are provided in the Constitution for this system of checks and balances Power is not concentrated in one place. Power is distributed right across the country. I will tell you in a bit. I won't take much time. In about 15-20 minutes, I will give you an overview of how our system and the constitution functions. Now, and those are the three pillars of the government. John Locke is the one who gave you this whole theory of democracy and how it functions. Legislature, executive, judiciary, system of checks and balances. What is the fourth element to this? The fourth element to this is a free press. The freedom of press, the freedom to speak, the freedom to publish, the freedom to circulate your thoughts right across the country. We are one of course, the West can have a biased view of what institutions that are there in this country, how they are functioning. They will put us in press freedom index on 143 living in their own dream. I have in my entire life, as I said, I spent my childhood in the presence of this magnificent building and its adjoining building, and I have not seen the press freedom being trampled. If we have a surviving democracy, if we have a good governance, it is because of the freedom of press. The freedom of the press gives you information. It tells you what's happening. In any country you go to the other countries, totalitarian, and you know, if I was in the part of the government or if I was a diplomat, I would hesitate. But you go to China, you go to Russia, you go to any other Middle Eastern country, you do not have freedom of speech and expression. My good friend Anup Bose will tell you this, that the greatest freedom here is freedom of speech and expression, which comes, and freedom of press tells you where the government is erring, where the legislature is erring, where the judiciary is erring, where the part of the executive, the civil service is not doing its duty. And that we have in umpteen, and to the fullest. There is enjoyment. No doubt there will be difficulties everywhere. Right? Even in the United States there are difficulties, and I don't want to go into that, wasting time on how good or bad other countries are. But let me tell you, our freedom of press freedom index should be the first 5-10, just like our economy in the world. Because right across the country, you have one of the highest number of television channels in this country. Tell me how many countries have this kind of television channels which are giving you all access to information of what is happening. You have a relatively free, except barring for one or two incidents, your social media is completely free. There is hardly anything that you cannot disseminate without fear or favor. Now, this constitution which we gave to ourselves is the great work of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, who and many other people from the Constituent Assembly, who put together by taking the best practices from the UK, from France, from the US, from Canada, from South Africa, from Australia, all across the country, all across the globe. You had best practices taken. In fact, our directive principles of state policy have been taken from Ireland. Now, we have just read the preamble. Preamble is the soul of the Constitution. What does it give you? Justice, liberty, equality, fraternity. It is the soul. It gives you what we ought to do. And that, just like my good friend Aubrey just now, tried to ensure that it goes into our system. We think about it and we are read it out for all of us, read it out for future generations, read it out for people seeing us everywhere. And that is what we imbibe in our thinking, in our feeling, in what we want to do for the country and in what the country ought to be. And that is a beauty of that preamble that makes everybody who wants to do what he wants to do in the country by seeing the soul of the Constitution and reading the preamble. Now, what else do we create as institutions? We created an election commission where our chief election commissioner was just there, free to ensure free and fair polls. We created a Union Public Services Commission, which churns out the best bureaucrats in the country. The iron framework, what it was called, the Indian Civil Service in good old days. Now it is the Indian Administrative Service and other services. We give the best administrators come from because of the Union Public Service. All again having complete freedom, free from the government, security of tenure. They have a constitutional position which protects them. Therefore, they are free and they want to do their duty as eminent citizens to give others excellent administrators for the country. Then what else did we do? we created a Comptroller and Auditor General of the country. The Comptroller Auditor General again is a constitutional appointee, absolutely free from the governmental control or any control in the country. He or she is responsible to ensure that the accounts of the country are told and given to the country where without any blemish, without any corrupt influences, etc. He holds the constitutional position, and he or she who holds that position knows that I am responsible to the entire country individually by myself, because mine is the constitutional position. We gave the election commissioners who are constitutional, all of them holding a rank of Judge of Supreme Court, security of 6 years tenure, and they are free to hold the elections in the manner they choose, not arbitrarily, but in accordance with all the provisions that follow after the Constitution. That's what we did. Then what did we do? We gave ourselves an executive which is defined. What is a cabinet minister? Who is the prime minister? All of these governments of the state, their responsibility is the houses, both the legislative assembly and the council, and both the Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha. All of these things are mentioned in the Constitution, and there are rules, and they provide the law by which these institutions must function. Any one of these are violated, you find they are before the court, and the judiciary will pass a judgment in accordance with law, in accordance what it ought to be, and that becomes law of the land. We gave Article 142 of the Constitution to ourselves, which says a judgment of the apex court of the Supreme Court shall become law of the land. So therefore, all of these functioning of these institutions is prescribed under the Constitution. Anywhere where anybody errs in their functioning, they are before a court of law, and we gave ourselves constitutional remedies as fundamental rights. We gave ourselves fundamental rights so that every citizen is free to go and knock at the doors of the court if they are violated by any government, any individual, any institution. Therefore, we have ensured the freedom of the people so that we can have a government of the people, by the people, for the people. And that is what democracy is. And all of this is enshrined in the Constitution. And that is how, over these 75 years, we have been able to, by trial and error, by enormous effort, by struggle, by people sacrificing their lives many times, sacrificing their well-being of every kind, have tried to do all of that. And may I tell you some movement which I was myself involved in as a youngster when I joined the profession. We have made right to education as a fundamental right. Now today, right across the country, from Kashmir, every state, Kashmir to Kanyakumari, everywhere, from Gujarat to Orissa, everywhere, the government is it is mandatory to provide free and compulsory education to all children in the country from the age of 6 to 14, so that we can provide basic literacy. And how did we do that? We amended the Constitution and added one more fundamental right, which will be justiciable, and therefore we are able to give that level of education. We have recently been able to remove abject poverty, abject hunger from this country, where there used to be so much of destitution and hunger, and we are able to remove that. We are able to remove by giving themselves good conditions of health. Every government promises health insurance, promises every other facility, including education, all of these things. They don't need to promise, but even if there is any lacuna, they want to make it up. And therefore, the judiciary and the Constitution, which even Chief Election Commissioner Qureshi mentioned, we have amended it 106 times. It is a living document for the well-being of all the citizens, to keep up with times. We have done that, and we have been able to give ourselves a constitution which is working. But it is to be, there is a basic structure. The basic structure doctrine was evolved by the judiciary, that we cannot tamper with the basic structure of the Constitution, and therefore we need to keep that intact. However, we may be making amendments with respect to, we have with respect to some parts of the Constitution, center-state relations, taxation, all of these. There are numerous provisions. The Constitution of India covers every aspect of governance in this country. Every aspect, nothing is left to chance. And it covers, and every law that is made has to be tested on the touchstone of constitutionality. Otherwise, the courts will strike it down. If it is unconstitutional, they will be struck down. So, Constitution is the basic, the Bible or our holy sacred book, which helps us, regulate our lives and the government and give us good governance, which is what. Now, the directive principles of state policy, there are various of them: social harmony, education, economic disparities to be removed. All of these things are there. Of course, we read the fundamental duties. Thank you. We've read the fundamental duties, and then we have now the fundamental rights, as I said: right to self-determination, liberty, due process of law. Nobody can be take away any of the rights can be violated without due process of law. Freedom of movement, right to privacy, freedom of thought, freedom of conscience, freedom of religion, freedom of expression, freedom of assembly, and all of these things. Now, elements of good governance. What the manner in which good governance is structured. I will finish in 10-15 minutes, 10 minutes maximum. I thought I'd do 6 o'clock. But citizens must have a right to compete for the office, form political parties, enjoy fundamental rights and civil liberties, and it is associated with accountable political leadership. We here today are able to give ourselves the rights to make governments accountable. Social groups, NGOs, the greatest contributors for good governance, they are ensuring that the governments are made accountable. Then a strong civil service. Our Chief Election Commissioner is a product of the civil service. A strong civil service, as I said, the Union Public Service Commission finds that, and we have the independence of judiciary. Now, how does the government try to be offer good governance? It has wide contacts with people who are administered. It follows the path of justice and parity, and it is non-partisan in dealing with disputes. It has sympathy and kindness and feelings and aspirations for the commoners. It protects the honor and morality of the humans. We have a Human Rights Commission, which is not a part of the original Constitution, but it comes out of that we have created a National Human Rights Commission to protect human rights of the country. It also, thereafter, humbleness and humility and modesty of people manning the administrative machinery, making and maintaining environment suitable and for growth and development, and being integral and honest with their actions and thoughts. This is what we expect of those who are governing us. And we have a couple of focus points. They have to clearly focus on the outcomes of their terms of competence and capability and quality of services. They have to substitute the highly centralized hierarchical organization structures to a decentralized organization. The Panchayati Raj that was mentioned, there's a decentralized form of functioning of the government. Now, besides this, concept of ancient India, I think he just left Ram Rajya, somebody, I think it was him or Dr. Merchant. Dr. Merchant, our constitution has adopted principles from Manu. Good governance also comes from Dharma. It comes from the ancient scriptures, which of which you are a great knowledge of Jataka, Atre Brahmana, Shukracharya, Nitasar, Panini, etc. All of these are principles that have translated into good governance. And then equality before law means nobody is above the law. Nobody is above the law. And what are other features of good governance? They are participation of women, participation of marginalized sections, rule of law. Rule of law is one of the finest instruments of good governance that as opposed, Montesquieu, I think, said that we should have a government of laws and not government of men. Where the government is of laws, it will be governed best. Where it is, you concentrate on government of men, it will be a governance of human beings who are fallible, who can err. But government of laws, you try to stick to that. It should be transparent. It should be responsive. There should be equity between men and women and all kinds of people in the country. There's, of course, the accountability and economic development. There must be equal chance, greater equality among the sections. We can never have 100% equality, but a great democracy or a great country is one where the middle classes are, they are the best class, and they have a large middle class is what we should aspire for, because invariably there will be a small percentage of lowest class and a small percentage of the high class. So what the good governance expects is that the large middle class having similar or almost the same incomes is what is expected. Then both in legislature and executive, I have said judiciary, of course, judiciary functions by rule of law. Mr. Rao, who just left, he was asking, and the judiciary is every day accountable, because we are having an open hearing. Every court today, you can sit in your living room or in your office and watch what is happening in the court, and everybody is watching them, and they are conscious and aware of that. They are conscious and aware that not only are people watching what they are doing, they are also conscious that some people may even record it. You can't prevent it. So what? So therefore, they are clearly exposed to working freely and fairly, and they are in the today's social media. You recently heard our former Chief Justice Chandraju said, we have broad shoulders and we can take any criticism. The social media doesn't spare anyone. Sometimes malicious, but most of the time it could be critical in a very balanced way, and that is because you are being seen. So therefore our judiciary is expected and is, as we speak, by the day, trying to deliver good governance to us. And the last, I would conclude by the companies, our business. We have what is called CSR. CSR, the corporate social responsibility. There's so much of beyond a particular profit income, they are expected to spend it by CSR activities, whether it's education, water, whatever they can choose, and they're expected to do that, and they work with NGOs. I know many big corporates which is doing great. And then corporate governance. One of the most important aspects of corporate functioning is good governance in corporate governance. So they are the best practices are talked about. They grade, they award people who are doing good work. I am a member of the Institute of Directors, a premier organization of independent directors and other directors of corporates, and they are all the time debating that how you recently saw the great adulation to Ratan Tata. And my Anup Dada wrote a recent article on him. The Tatas are praised and appreciated for good corporate governance. So our corporates are also again coming through company law, translated from the constitutional provisions. They are expected to look after their labor, give them welfare benefits, give them their children education, housing, health, all of these things. So good corporate governance is a result of good governance principles which have come, and our corporates are doing great work there. And finally, the way the government is functioning is through e-governance, and we have things like DigiLocker, which keeps all your personal Aadhaar or your PAN card or your election commission card. Then there are apps which are called the My Government app. And then they also have whistleblower protection in case of anybody trying to expose a corrupt person, and they go on the websites and they can expose these people in anonymity. So many of these e-governance and transparency aspects are there, which have translated and of course the role of media, as I've already said, and finally role of academic institutions. Academic institutions are doing great work. I'm glad you people have decided the best. I have at least addressed at least 50 or more, or maybe 100 academic institutions all through my career, right across the country and around the world. The best reform you can bring in any country is through the academic institutions. The best best ideas are generated from the academic institutions. So academic institutions are doing a great job in good governance. So these are the wide spectrum by which we are able to bring good governance, which is the result of the magnificent document we have adopted to ourselves, the Constitution of India. Thank you very much for hearing me patiently.
This is an amazing part of the second half. We will end shortly. Before that, may I call upon you and remind you, we just sang the national anthem, and here you are holding a little leaflet at the back. You wonder, what is that QR code? You know, while we take time off and while we have our tea time snack very shortly, can we encourage each other to take out your mobile phone, which we took out right at the beginning to make it silent? Well, let's put it to work and scan this document. Use the mobile phone to scan this document, okay? If you have an iOS phone, an Apple phone, you can scan the web app, because iOS is not ready, and you can do it right now. And, and if you, later, okay? And if you have an Android phone, you can go onto the Google Play Store and download it. Now, what do you get here? Immediately you'll get a free lesson on how to play on the keyboard and how to sing our national anthem, Jan Gan Man. We're implementing a piece of Clause A, Article 51A of the Constitution of India right now, okay? And we're going to take this movement across the nation, across 28 states and 8 union territories. Added to that is, of course, elements of the Constitution that will be added to this free course as we go along. There are 365 days ahead of us. Every week we'll have a surprise. Every month we'll have a surprise. We will have speakers elucidate and elaborate on the various chapters and sessions, chapters and parts of the Constitution as the days approach. Isn't that exciting? Okay? And the world will wait and see. Wait for Dr. G.B. Rao's session on an aspect. Wait for Praful Talera, Chief Praful Talera's, talk on this particular aspect. I mean, I'm finding it exciting. I can't wait to have you talk, sir. I can't wait to talk for you to have you talk, ma'am. And we're going to have Dr. Qureshi talk about the Election Commission and what that great institution that this Constitution has built. And that too not on 26th of Jan 1950, but way back 2 months earlier on 26th of November 1949. That is, I'm thrilled. 16 clauses out of which the Chief Election Commission comes out of. Now all of this, the next generation will be privileged. I missed it when I was studying. The next generation will be a privilege. And that's the wonderful thing that we have about the Constitution. I'm excited about this day. Thank you for joining me. But let's start by singing the national anthem as a prayer to God for our nation and for our brothers and sisters, as I understood it when I was 7 years old. Let us allow us to express our appreciation with flowers.
Yeah, such a beautiful